Everyone. So, welcome. Unraveling the Past, Exploring Identity, Power, and Survival in Octavia Butler's Kindred. I am Dr. Monique L. Akassi. This is September 30th, 2024, here at Howard University. So, as we begin to explore this exciting text by the late, great Octavia Butler, please keep in mind that this presentation on Octavia Butler's Kindred aims to explore the intricate interplay between time travel and the historical legacy of slavery, inviting you to consider how these elements shape the narrative. A striking fact to note is that Kindred has been selected as one of the most significant works of American literature, highlighting its enduring relevance and also its critical acclaim since its publication in 1979. Throughout this presentation, we will delve into the background of Octavia Butler. We will dissect essential story elements, examine key themes, and considering literary theoretical frameworks as well. We will look at themes such as identity and power dynamics, perform a contextual analysis of the novel's setting, discuss its reception over the years, and engage you in thoughtful discussion to deepen your understanding. So to begin with the historical context, the setting. So we want to keep in mind that this setting is twofold. On one hand, from the past, we're looking at the antebellum South, 1815 to 1865. We know slavery ended in 1865, but she's right in the trenches, the protagonist. So plantation life, the novel explores the brutality of slavery, focusing on the day-to-day lives of enslaved people on Maryland plantations. We're also dealing with chattel slavery. Enslaved people were considered property with no legal rights and were subjected to forced labor, violence, and systemic dehumanization. And we're dealing with power dynamics. The social hierarchy is defined by the plantation owners who exert total control over enslaved people. Butler contrasts this with the 1970s, where formal slavery no longer exists, and we're actually in post-civil rights movement. So, and modern day times is taking place in the 1970s. The protagonist, Dana, the late 1970s. But then it also goes back to the 19th century, the antebellum South. So by the time of Dana's narrative in 1976, the civil rights movement had ended, but racial tensions and systemic inequalities continue. We're also dealing with interracial marriage during the 70s. So Dana, an African-American woman, is married to Kevin, a white man, highlighting challenges of interracial relationships even in the relatively progressive, quote unquote, 1970s. The theme of time travel as a metaphor is very powerful. There's a connection to the past. Butler uses time travel to create a visceral connection between Dana's present and her ancestral past. And this is symbolizing how history continues to shape identity, race relations, and memory, personal versus historical. So the novel explores the idea that understanding history is key to understanding oneself and the present effects of trauma across generations. We're also dealing with resistance and survival. So themes of resistance, just like how we read excerpts from Equiano, we need to explore more works like this, because a lot of times we don't get a chance to explore the slave rebellions and the resistance. But Butler does it so eloquently Enslaved characters in Kindred resist oppression in both overt and subtle ways, reflecting real historical acts of rebellion by enslaved people. So Butler's message is, by bridging past and present, she suggests that the struggles of African Americans are ongoing, and survival, though possible, requires continuous resistance and awareness of historical realities. So, we also want to take a dive into exploring key themes. So, Octavia Butler's Kindred intricately weaves themes of race, power, and history, challenging readers to confront the past's relevance in contemporary society. And indeed, even today, she leaves a legacy of influence. Just last week, we heard a profound, powerful keynote address by Dr. Daniel Black on Butler. So Octavia Butler's work transcends genres, intertwining science fiction with profound social commentary, reshaping the narrative landscape. And just a glimpse at her publication history with the evolution of Kindred's impact. So in 1979, the publication received critical acclaim. By 1980, it gained popularity in academia. And by the 2000s, Kindred enters college curriculum. By 2017, there's a graphic novel adaptation released. And just recently, there's a series on a movie adaptation of Octavia Butler's Kindred, which we also will watch and compare to the novel as well. So, this timeline highlights the significant milestones in the publication and reception of Octavia Butler's Kindred, showcasing its growing influence over the decades. So let's look at story elements now. So, plot overview. We want to consider the time travel tensions. Dana's journey explores her identity, resilience, and the harsh realities of slavery, revealing deep connections to her ancestors. Now, we know the main characters, key figures in Kindred's narrative include Dana Franklin, a brave protagonist confronting her ancestral past; Kevin Franklin, supportive husband, navigating time's complexities, and even he is thrown back into the past. So even think about that. In the 1970s, we have an interracial marriage. And then all of a sudden, they're back in the 1860s. Is their marriage still recognized? Can they have public displays of affection and share that they're married? We also have Rufus Whalen, who is a complex antagonist with deep ties to Dana. And Alice Greenwood, who's shown on the next slide, is a slave whose fate intertwines with Dana's journey. So Dana Franklin and identity and resilience. So Dana Franklin navigates the complexities of her identity and the harsh realities of slavery, showcasing strength and resilience throughout her time traveling journey, going in and out between 1970s and the 1860s. Then we have her husband, Kevin Franklin, and bridging time and space. So Kevin Franklin serves as Dana's anchor, embodying the challenges of interracial relationships amid historical trauma and the complexities of time travel. And then we see Rufus again. He goes from little boy to a grown man, and his complex antagonist profile. So Rufus embodies the contradictions of slavery, showcasing power, manipulation, and a complicated bond with Dana, which is central to understanding Kindred's themes. Then we have Alice Greenwood, who represents strength and resilience. Alice Greenwood embodies the harsh realities of slavery, showcasing resilience amidst suffering and highlighting themes of survival and identity in Kindred. We also want to take a deep dive because, in preparation for your next papers after midterms, we want to do our next paper dealing with research and applying a theoretical framework of your choice to it and pulling examples and themes that intersect and connect with the theory of your choice. Some literary criticism theories to consider might be feminist theory and women in power. So Dana's journey as a Black woman underscores gendered and racial power dynamics, both in the antebellum South and in the 1970s. Intersectionality. So the novel explores how Dana's identity as a Black woman intersects with issues of race, gender, and class, influencing her experiences with both historical and modern oppression. Next, post-colonial theory. So we see a legacy of colonialism here in Kindred. Kindred critiques the lingering effects of slavery, a system born of colonial exploitation, and it examines the trauma passed through generations. Deconstructing the master slave relationship is also relevant within this novel. Within the novel, it delves into the power imbalance between Rufus and Dana, highlighting post colonial themes of domination and resistance. We also may want to consider the theory of critical race theory and the racial trauma. Kindred highlights how historical and systemic racism shapes individual lives both in the 19th century and the 20th century. And as we're reading it, it can even be applied to the 21st century. Color blindness critique. So the novel interrogates the myth of racial progress, showing how racism persists across time despite supposed advances in civil rights. Next, we have Afrofuturism theory. And with this, again, we want to go back and recall again time travel as metaphor. So, by blending science fiction and historical fiction, Butler uses time travel to explore Black futures and past, addressing themes of survival, resistance, and self discovery. And then reclaiming history. So, Afrofuturism in Kindred reimagines African American history, suggesting that understanding the past is key to shaping the future. And then finally, the theory of trauma theory. So, generational trauma is definitely one that is explored in the book. Dana's time travel to the period of slavery reflects how trauma from slavery is passed through generations, affecting her identity and mental health. And then we have the embodied memory. The novel demonstrates how trauma is not only psychological, but it's also physical, as Dana experiences bodily harm when transported to the past. Next, we will explore themes and concepts. So, exploring the core themes of Kindred include themes such as racial identity, which delves into the struggles of identity across eras, power dynamics, which highlights the influence of slavery on relationships, time travel, which connects historical and modern experiences through narrative, and survival and resilience, which showcases the strength needed to overcome adversity. So, when we think about racial identity, we need to understand the layers and the complexities of racial identity. We want to think about identity across time and examine historical context. We want to think about racial history's impact and its influence on personal identity throughout the novel and beyond, and interracial relationships and its complex dynamics explored. Power dynamics is also a topic that we will discuss through discussion board on Canvas, exploring control and influence, slave and the slave master relationships, the complex dynamics of control, the impact of power, influence on personal connections, the legacy of power structures, continuing effects in society, and how that continues today. With time travel and bridging the past and present, Octavia Butler shows that in Kindred, time travel immerses Dana in her ancestral past, emphasizing the historical weight of slavery on contemporary life and personal identity. Now, contextual analysis, we want to think about slavery's enduring legacy throughout this novel. By exploring the antebellum South's impact on Kindred, it highlights the complexities of identity, power, and survival in a slave society. We also want to pay close attention to the rhetorical strategies that Octavia Butler uses. Her narrative structure, her writing style, and exploring the time and perspective. Her writing style, the narrative is non-linear. It's a non-linear timeline. It's cyclical. It's not like your traditional linear approach with storytelling. It's cyclical. It goes in and out, back and forth. It can't be contained. It blends past and present events seamlessly. And it's written in the first person narrative. So we experience this journey, if you will, this time travel through Dana's eyes. And the power of the utilization of flashbacks in this novel. She uses the flashbacks to highlight key events that are revealed dynamically with the flashback utilization. And then there's the time travel mechanism, which connects characters across eras. Some of the literary devices that we want to keep in mind that can go under the auspices of the literary theory that you decide to apply towards the text include the following: symbolism. Objects and events represent deeper meanings. For instance, if it's the symbol, if you're dealing with, if you decide to write your paper on Kindred through a post-colonial lens and dealing with how does one regain their identity back after it's been stripped from one, maybe the symbolism of a Confederate flag. This is just an example. Maybe that's a connection to the colonialism and post-colonialism. Foreshadowing is another literary device which hints at future events to build suspense. Irony, this shows the contradictions in characters' actions and beliefs. And then imagery, which shows vivid descriptions that evoke sensory experiences. Now we're going to look at the reception and impact of this great novel. So in 1980, Octavia Butler's Kindred won the Locus Award nomination, recognized as a top novel. In 1999, it won among the top 100 books. It was highlighted in Black Issues Review as well. In 2003, it was the one book selection chosen for community reading programs. And in 2012, it was the NEA Big Read, which was part of a national reading initiative. And recently, there is a film adaptation on Hulu, I believe, of Octavia Butler's Kindred as a series, which we will also take a look at. It will be quite interesting to compare it to the novel itself. So the cultural impact that Kindred has left so many of us with reshapes the narratives around race and identity. Indeed, many say Octavia Butler was a genius, the mother of Afrofuturism, one that was so ahead of her time, fostering critical dialogue and influencing contemporary literature and social discourse. As we think about for the rest of this week and through our discussion boards, we want to think about some key points for conversations this week, which will be posted, such as challenging historical narratives, revising American history perspectives through an Africana lens, through an Afrofuturism lens, and the list goes on. Time travel's role, exploring identity through eras, power dynamics, reflecting societal issues, and personal connections, engaging with characters deeply, not just on the top surface, but a deep dive into these characters, how they connect to some of these literary themes and devices, and literary theoretical frameworks as well. So, indeed, we are excited about delving in to begin reading Octavia Butler's Kindred. I welcome you, and we will be in great discussion each week about Octavia Butler's Kindred.